Quickly, my name's Matt Carpenter. For those of you that are new to our Counselor Coffee Talk, so every other week we do this 12 Eastern time. One of the weeks each month is just kind of an open grab bag. Bring your questions, bring your case studies. Um, Pretty open forum. I'll talk about what's kind of going on, at least in our little niche world here. And that's what this week is, right? So, especially this time of year when we're in a bit of a lull, it's very rare that I say we go the whole hour and we don't have as crowded as a room as we do, after Labor Day and some of the peak parts of the season. So that'll be today, right? Just kind of open grab bag. Please put all your questions in Q&A. That's where I'll be keeping an eye on those. And again, this can be stuff that's really broad. It can be something that's really specific. You had somebody, a parent walk into your office, like right now it's, class 2024, there's still a ton of families trying to figure out how they're going to pay their fall semester bill. So most of our questions are, how do I get the lowest loan rate? The plus loan's 10% this year. Are there cheaper options? Which there are, which I'll talk about in a second. You might not feel comfortable answering some of those questions, so this is where you can talk about it. Send parents to us, however we can be a resource. And then the second presentation we do each month will be kind of more focused. So 2 weeks from today, we'll be talking about, I think you as counselors, right, kind of in your sleep, you can help, kids build their list of colleges, and that's second nature. You know them, the colleges, easy peasy, right? And I imagine that's one of the better parts of your job, or at least that's been my experience with my relationships with school counselors. That's kind of the fun stuff. I think the hardest part of that process for you all is the affordability factor, right? Where even if and obviously some of these families intimately, and that this kid has a ton of resources, no resources, somewhere in between, whatever. But it's hard to know, are these colleges that I'm recommending that I know are, seem to check all the boxes in terms of the students' interests and the culture fit and, geographic fit and all of that. How does the affordability fit for that family work, right? And I think oftentimes you guys are flying blind there. So we're going to talk about what can you do to provide some value there. Again, something we say all the time, net price calculators can be very dangerous. That'll be a part of the presentation next week. Not that we're, saying don't send them net price calculators, but buyer beware a little bit. Yeah. So question here. Any updates on the FAFSA, right, for next year? Nothing tangible, right? Basically, our little birdies are telling us, hey, as of today, it's still an October 1st release date. I'm going to be blown away if we actually hit that. And again, that's based on some intel we've gotten, just anecdotally, how far behind we are this year, and we still haven't caught up. I don't see a world in which they hit October 1st next year. Obviously, they are. Maybe you don't all know this, but they fired the head guy at the Department of Education that was ultimately in charge of FAFSA. They've temporarily poached the head guy at College Board, that again ultimately owns CSS Profile, and he's been there now on an interim basis, maybe 2 months thereabouts. So my guess is he's going to have an impact. He's going to want to make some his presence felt there. So TBD, there haven't been any real tangible announcements since he's been there, but I expect some to come in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we'll be all over that stuff and share it as soon as we hear anything, and we won't wait till these things. We'll make sure that we blast out any real updates to you. Kind of specific question. Is the student submitting their portion and then the contributor does their part? Again, as far as we know, the order of operations is still going to work that way, even though you could do it either way, right? The best practice we found, and this was not even close, was that the student should submit their section first, invite the contributor, i.e. parent, only one of them. And that was a wonky snafu this year with the FAFSA, where you only invite one parent, even if you have two parents in the household. Only fill out one of the parent section on the student section. Invite the contributor, i.e. the parent with the FSA ID. After the student section is submitted, the parent contributor will log into their FSA ID. They'll accept the invitation and go in and complete that part. And as part of that, if there is a second parent, then they will fill out those details. So that's the best practice in terms of the most efficient way to get the FAFSA across the finish line. And again, we expect that particular piece of it to be the same next year. Give me just a second here. So because the first thing that I want to do again is just in terms of what's most topical, it has been the for 2024, it's been choosing the right student loan, right? How do I get the lowest student loan rate? I'm going to share this link and I'm going to quickly walk you through it, because this is what I would recommend that you share with probably your parents anyways. But certainly if you get the question, this would be the resource. And again, I just put this in the chat. You can see, and we got a bunch of good stuff on our website in terms of, free resources. But in here, it's, 4 steps to choosing the right student loan. And we talk about the fact that this year, the Parent Plus loan, the federal government loan option, 9% plus. There's also a 4.25 origination fee. Effectively, it's 10% this year. Okay. So what we're recommending in terms of, again, best practices to find the lowest student loan rate, best student loan for your family, is apply to a couple within the private student loan marketplace. College Ave we like because it takes 3 minutes. It's a soft credit pull. Okay. It's not a hard credit pull. Sallie Mae, generally speaking, is one of the more competitive loan rates. And then Earnest, not a household name, but they're kind of an up and comer. And this is something that happens in the student loan space, which is very competitive. They compete with one another, which is good for us as consumers because that drives down rates. But Earnest is saying that they will match any lender's rates. So we go find our lowest rate, try 2 others, bring it to Earnest and say, hey, College Ave gave me, 5. We've even seen some families say, hey, College Ave gave me 5. I don't care if you're going to match it because I'm already in at 5. I'll just go with them. But if you can beat it, then you'll earn my business. So that's what we're recommending. Once we do that, now we know what our lowest rate is within the private student loan marketplace. And then we want to compare it to state options. Less than half the states in the country have state programs where you can borrow if you live in that state or if your kid goes to school in that state. Okay, so for example, if you live in Vermont, you can use VSAC. That's the name of their state loan program. Pretty good program, very competitive rates, decent repayment terms. Or you can live in Hawaii, but your kid goes to Middlebury College or UVM or St. Mike's, right? Then I can use Vermont's program, but it's only under one of those 2 ways, right? Unless you're one of these states, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and of all places, Iowa. Anyone, regardless of where your kid goes to school, regardless of what state you live in, can use their programs, and they're pretty good. So we want to look at what's our lowest rate in the private market. Let's go compare that with the states and then go compare that with the federal government. Now, if you're a family that has really poor credit, you're not going to get a competitive rate in the private student loan market. You might not qualify at all. You're going to get a higher rate probably, or might not qualify within the state programs, although they're easier than most private lenders. Okay, but they'll be very expensive. Like if you have low credit, Sallie Mae will say, yup, you qualify 14% or something, outrageous, right? So for those families, the plus loan may be the best bet, even though it's pretty stinking expensive this year, because they're the easiest to qualify for, and everybody we know is going to get this rate. It also within this link that I sent you, Peg and I do a very comprehensive, like hour-long presentation on all of these private loans, pros and cons. Talk about when to use what money. We have 529s, we have grandparent 529s. How do we do the federal direct student loan, which of course we recommend that everybody starts there. So this is a pretty good resource for anybody that you might want to share this with. And we usually recommend just blast that out to 2024s. But yeah, any questions there, please let me know. Cause again, it's this has been a challenge this year among all the other challenges this year, of course. but yeah, that is kind of the biggest talking points for right now for the class of 2024. I think there's one other resource I wanted to get you all. Let me see. Um, well, this is always a good one too, is that we have this a Facebook group that is moderated by our experts. They're in there 40 hours a week. So, and it's pretty interactive. So again, if again, if I know a lot of you counselors always get any free resources we can give our families, that's what we want to do. Those are a couple good ones. I know what I wanted to do. Thank you. Thank you, me. Um, is we have coming up on um next week, we're doing another live webinar just around the um oh, get back here. Just around the nope. The whole how to pay our bill, right, for the class 2024. So again, if you want to share this with any families, the live presentation, please do. And there is that link. Okay. Yeah, and obviously the other, now it's game time with the Common App being out. Most of the supplemental applications being live. So hopefully, students are in the weeds there and getting ahead of that and asking you all for your uh, recommendations ahead of time and things like this. I don't know if you saw, but I think I talked about this 2 weeks ago, but the University of Chicago, hopefully this is not a trend, but is now doing early decision. So moving up these timelines even further. Obviously a pretty popular school in the middle of the country. So I have a feeling that's going to be a thing that again, especially for in our neck of the woods in the Northeast, where most of our school counselors don't get back until after Labor Day, we're hitting the ground running even more so. So it seems to be creeping up every single year in terms of these earlier and earlier deadlines, etc. So that's kind of I think the biggest note on the admissions front. Let me just see if there was any other kind of share worthy things here that we get. Okay. Yeah, in terms of um these deadlines creeping up, right? Clemson wants their application in by 8/1. Okay, so we're already 6 days late from that in order to maximize your odds of getting preferred housing. And by all intents and purposes, that's a real thing. Or if we're to believe our what I think are pretty credible sources here, you got to apply by 8/1, and I'm just kind of sharing their link right now directly from the website. But as you all know, whether you are down south or up here in the Northeast or a different part of the country, Clemson's skyrocketed in popularity, helps to win national championships. But they want you to apply by 8/1 if you want to get your preferred housing. So pretty again, when we talk about early deadlines, that's a little bit insane. But I think those are the biggest ones. Again, I'm looking through kind of team notes here in terms of what our admissions folks that keep a pulse on all things college admissions, if there was anything else that might be share worthy here. Okay. You know what else you guys might find helpful? I don't know if you'll be able to access this, but this is a pretty good database in terms of how many supplemental essays, if any, some of the more popular competitive colleges require. I will just share this again. Not that it's your job to manage this for students, But it is a pretty, it's pretty wild to look at, and I'll just kind of share quick, so you guys can see some of these. Look at Brown coming in at 7 required essays, Caltech 7, Cornell 6 or 7, 4 at Elon now, which is wild, right? 3 at Rice. Chicago went down their early decision, but from 6 to down to 2. Maryland 6, amazing. And then so some more specifics that you can see within here, but hopefully a helpful document from you all. You may have to request access. I don't know if that's a public document, but hopefully that's relevant for some of you and helpful maybe to share with students, parents, whatever, as they try to navigate, all there is to do to even get your application in front of a committee, or at least a first reader at some of these schools. Okay, and then I will, for those of you that are brand new to us, this will be old hat for some of our current partners, but you know the drill. But for those of you folks that don't have any, actually, let me grab it here. Are new to our space, right? So our whole deal, in addition to just supporting you guys and things like this, is to support you all on a more day-to-day basis, right? We like to consider ourselves like an extension of your school counseling offices, and specifically on the financial aid scholarship front. That's our first language, and we speak it a whole bunch every day. And I think for in my experience of a lot of you folks feel like that's not necessarily a strength, or you're a little bit overmatched. It's always changing, whatever. So that's where we like to fit in, and the role that we like to play. So I'm going to put this share this in the chat here. But there's 2 ways that we do this, right? One way is that we just provide education throughout the year, where we are provide a curriculum. So it starts at kind of like Financial Aid 101. How does this whole thing work? We do line by line through the FAFSA, through the CSS profile. We do a presentation on the verification and IDOC process to fill the room there, because that's boring stuff. We'll talk about private scholarships, best practices there, how to understand your award letter and appeal for more money, and then finally how to pay the bill, right? I think this will be our last presentation this season in terms of how do we pay the bill, how do we borrow, etc. And then in addition to providing that education, all of our families have access to this is their dashboard, or they know their SAIs. They know exactly what these schools are going to cost them. So think of like an instant net price calculator, but you can actually rely on it all in one place. Your first year net cost, 4-year net cost versus your budget, right? So we're showing them, well, how much will you have to borrow at this particular college? Oops, sorry about that. And how is that outcome? Is it a good outcome? Is it we want to be cautious with this outcome, or is it great? Is it ideal? Every private scholarship in the country is baked into here, line by line instructions to the FAFSA and CSS profile, translating our award letters, letting you know if you got a good deal. Essentially, everything that we think are the major pain points in this process are baked into here. And then there's just a lot of this CAP Academy here is really good, where any questions that you might have, I can just type it in here and say FAFSA, for example, and it's going to pull up every video that we have in our library that talks about FAFSA and goes to exactly what spot. If I click on anything, it'll go to exactly that spot. We got a really cool chat GBT where I can put anything I want in here. So let's say scholarship displacement. And let's see what it says. This is kind of our AI feature. So all of our intellectual property essentially is baked into here. So you can see what it says, scholarship displacement is a practice where colleges reduce the amount of need-based financial aid they provide to a student when their student receives private scholarships. Here's a detailed explanation. So it's a pretty amazing technology, but again, any question parents have, they kind of have access to our brain and any content we provided over the last 20 years in here. Every other week we do office hours. So we'll have two of our experts on live where parents can just show up for their questions. So again, this is something that I think has been a great value for families, for school counselors, etc. So if you don't leverage this at your school already, just write into counselor at collegeaidpro.com and you can meet with myself or Anne Marie, who is our director of high school partnerships, and we'll get you guys set up at your school. And if you have no budget at your school, don't worry. Most of our high school partners don't have any budget. Everything's free. Some of our high schools do have a budget, so they participate in, I don't know, an upgraded variety, if you will, which we can talk about should you choose to reach out. But leverage us and let parents know that we're out here too, because again, we consider ourselves a source of truth because we are. And we want to make sure that they're going into this thing, eyes wide open to the extent that we can help it. But this counselor at collegeaidpro.com email that I put in there, that's for any of your questions, right? And again, we have eyes on that during all business hours. We pride ourselves on being really responsive. It's very rare that you won't hear back from us day of, assuming it's not over the weekend, of course, or not right at the end of the day. And again, that can be anything that somebody could walk into your office and say, hey, this family's undocumented. What would you advise? And you go advise them directly, or you say, hey, can this parent ask this question directly to you guys, right? Again, think of us as an extension of your office within our sweet spot. And that's the role that we want to play here. So I think that's the hits for today. As far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to again stick around for as long as needed to answer any questions if you all have them. And again, it can be about anything. And yeah, 2 weeks from now, we'll spend some time on how we think what you all can do to help, even if you're not getting in the weeds with families, help recommend schools that you also feel like are not going to put families in a bad situation from a financial standpoint. Yeah, now sit tight for a second here. I'll give it one more minute, guys, and then we'll class dismissed. And by the way, if you want us to do webinars for this fall and you haven't got on our calendar already, I recommend that you please write into counselor at collegeaidpro.com, because this baby is filling up all the way. I see we already got 1227 on the calendar. I think that one will probably be canceled, but we already got 1212 on the calendar. So all that's to say, if you want us to provide webinars for your community, please reach out so we get those scheduled. Yeah, it's funny. A great question. Just serendipitous timing. around homeschooling, we're trying to um, get in that community more, because I think we've heard enough feedback, even though it hasn't been from the masses, that they're have some different challenges, right? And don't necessarily have a school counselor. Usually, I know there's some of these hybrid communities that have some type of school counselor, but I'm happy to help, Lisa, if you want to. What I would recommend, because as a matter of fact, Anne Marie, who not only is our director of school partnerships, she is the mother of a hybrid school, homeschool parent, mother of a daughter, right? She's doing that right now. So number one, she's living it and breathing it and has a ton of insight. But again, is in her area of the country in South Carolina has homeschooling is fairly common there, right? Where it's less so around where I live. But yeah, I would love for you to write into counselor@collegeaidpro.com. Let's set up a time to connect and see how we can help you there in your specific case. But more broadly speaking, we're trying to figure out how we can make a difference kind of in that community at large. So again, serendipitous timing, quite literally. We talked about it in our meeting yesterday afternoon. So that's great timing, and please do write in. Yeah, and yeah, we'd love your input. We'd love to help. Just again, write into counselor@collegeaidpro.com. We'll be all over it. All right, y'all. Well, that is it for me. Going once, going twice here. Appreciate you showing up, especially again for most of you. I know lots of you are off or just getting back to school, so appreciate the dedication as always. And again, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Have a more focused kind of session before before we're officially in the thick of it in September. But I know we're already a little bit in the thick of it right now. So thanks everybody. Appreciate you showing up as always. We'll